Welcome to The Insider, the official podcast for the City of Murfreesboro. I'm Mike Browning. Our guest today is City Manager Darren Gore, who officially took over the position on July 2nd. Gore is an engineer who previously served as the Assistant City Manager and also the Water Resources Director, and he helped spearhead this latest drive on a material management station, which is ongoing as we speak. So, Darren, thanks a lot for being our guest, and congratulations on the promotion.
Thank you very much. It's been, as they say, the veritable drinking from a fire hose the last 3 weeks, but it's been good. I expected that. When you're the new guy, everyone kind of demands your attention a little bit. So I've been going to multiple division meetings, construction meetings, planning commission, city council, water resources. Of course, trying to be everywhere and be seen. You and I had talked earlier about the fact that demonstrating that you care for people usually translates into time being spent with people and employees. So when you talk about wanting to show people that you care about them, their aspirations, their careers, their families, their well-being, right now I'm just trying to be present and engaged and show everybody that, hey, I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. Now, again, it may be unsustainable. I may not be able to do this long term, when I say long term, for years, but I expected the first 6 months to a year to be a very intense period of time where I'm on a very steep learning curve. People are trying to bring me up to speed on projects that they believe need attention. The council expects me to be intimate with the details on several fronts that I haven't been intimate with before. So when you stack all that up together, it's a significant amount of time and effort, but it's exactly what I expected I would have to do.
Sounds like you've had to be a good listener. Do you find that a lot of people had something they wanted to say?
Oh, absolutely. I think, again, it gets back to, I talk a lot. I feel like I talk too much at times, and I really have tried to be an active listener and take notes. I've gotten on, we talked again about this earlier, I'm on OneNote now, and I've learned on my computer here to use the stylus to take notes in a handwritten form and save those. So when people are talking and telling me things, I'm trying to take notes, write it down. I remember it better when I write it down versus just listening to it. So it helps me recall things as we move forward. And again, I think it should demonstrate to folks when I'm taking notes that I'm recording what they're saying, and I'm trying to again be able to recollect that for future reference. So yeah, taking a lot of notes.
For the viewers that are watching, maybe even for the first time, or our listeners as well, it would probably help them to have some information on your background since you're coming into this new. Now, a lot of people knew you were the Director of Water Resources, but your educational background, your experience, and what you did here for the city as well.
Sure, great. I'll try to be quick. First, before I go into my background, I think one of the unique things that I've noticed in all these meetings I've been going to is that people are they're watching me very intently. And I think I've figured it out, at least I think I have, that even though I was Assistant City Manager, Water Resources Director for 12 years, now that you are put into a higher level of authority, I think we've all had those scenarios where when somebody got promoted, maybe their character changed, or all of a sudden the carefree personality turns into more of an authoritarian. So a lot of folks are kind of like, is this the same? I think people are watching me to make sure, is this the same Darren that, as Assistant City Manager that he is as City Manager? So I'm trying to, again, maintain that character integrity, if you will, that, hey, I reassure everybody I'm the same guy. I'm not going to let this new power or authority, if you will, go to my head. But to answer your original question, grew up in Smyrna boy. I'm sure there's a lot of people in Smyrna shaking their heads right now that they can't believe that this guy's Murfreesboro City Manager. So went K through 12 to Smyrna, went off to Georgia Tech, got my undergraduate engineering degree, got my master's in engineering as well, and passed my civil engineering professional engineer's exam in '98, I believe. So became a registered engineer in Tennessee. Worked for about 3 years in Birmingham with a consulting firm. So I started out in the private sector as a consultant. Moved up to Murfreesboro in '98 and started working for Weiser Company, Cy Weiser, local firm here. Did that for about 7 years, seven and a half, and started with the city in 2005 as the assistant director to the Water Resources Department. And I was over the engineering and kind of the development services of the Water Resources Department. In 2012, Joe Kirchner retired, and I became director. And so from 2012 to 2024, I was the acting director of the Water Resources. In 2018, Craig was promoted to city manager, and he promoted me to assistant city manager. But I kind of had a dual role of got it, of course, into the solid waste, as you mentioned.
Still water resources.
But still had to oversee and was still the acting director of the Water Resources Department. So, and again, when you become assistant city manager, there are certain administrative functions I had to get into as well. So, but I was still down at the Water Resources Admin Building on Vine and Broad. So I always said there was some benefit to not being inside City Hall, but there were some disadvantages at time to not being in City Hall. So when I moved over here 3 weeks ago, again, moving into the city manager's office, which was Craig's old office, and you've got your administrative staff around you that you've known for years, but they haven't seen you in that office before, and there's a little bit of we're learning how to dance with each other maybe in a different tune. So it's we're learning each other's styles since I wasn't here internal to City Hall, but it's been good, and I think everybody's reacting to my new leadership so far in a really good way.
Some of these issues or challenges that the city faces, you've already been dealing with because you were assistant city manager.
Right.
But what do you see now? You've had a couple of months. I know that's not very long, but what do you see as some of the major issues and challenges that you're facing right now?
Well, the pay again. We've when I started, the council had given public safety in the form of the police department a significant pay adjustment as part of the budget, but didn't do it with fire. So really hot potato right when I get in start is how do we define and put parameters around how we need to adjust the firefighter pay to get them into a better market position, we'll say. So I've been spending a lot of time with the chiefs, Chief McCluskey and Chief Bowen and Aaron Tucker, and had one-on-ones with the council, and just trying to get that pay adjustment finalized, which we're planning on bringing to tonight's council meeting as a budget amendment. That's probably been the biggest. The other thing, again, some of the economic development projects that we're dealing with, those financing right now is not
because
great.
Interest rates are so high.
Interest rates are
Yeah.
so high, so a lot of things that were put on the table a year and a half, 2 years ago, it was a different financial market than we've got right now. So we're having to look at some potential amendments to some of the economic development opportunities that we've had on the table for a while.
Is Keystone one of those?
Keystone is one of those. Yes, we're continuing to have to talk with them, and we know that the hotel financing is the challenge that they have, and we're hoping that we can come to right now the hotel financing is kind of integrated with the condominiums and the
mixed use
part of it, and we need to somehow segregate that so that maybe we can get the hotel financed under a different financing package. So we're working through those issues, and I've again talked to the council about that, and again, those are areas that I'm having to get a steep learning curve on, because I'm maybe not that's not necessarily the way I've spent the last part of my experience, but some of the stuff is fairly intuitive, and I can follow the bouncing ball, if you will, and I don't mind asking very candid questions. That's probably why some people appreciate that. Some people maybe not so, but I can identify, I think, issues pretty quickly, and I don't like long meetings, so I don't beat around the bush very long. I try to get to the heart of the matter. So
There's Town Creek too.
Town Creek, yes,
but that's going to go ahead regardless, right?
Yes,
because it's separate.
It is. We've got to get that project actually bid by the end of the year in order to receive our ARP, our American Rescue Plan,
The federal funding
for that. And I think it's got to get built within 2 years so by the end of 2026, we're going to have that constructed. So those are the two. So it's moving forward. We had a big utility coordination meeting the other day to make sure that one thing I have found, and of course being from the utility background, is a lot of times the utility relocations and the utility the various utilities sometimes are late to the party, and there's a big project going on, and all of a sudden the utilities are expected to just get their relocation plans done quickly. We did have a big utility relocation meeting for Town Creek, and I think everybody didn't identify anything that would hold us up from getting this thing bid before the end of the year. So we're excited about that. That will absolutely it'll change Broad Street from Vine to Church. We're no longer going to have any more right turn entries. All those businesses, the city has acquired, and we're going to have a nice kind of linear park, daylight that Town Creek between Murphy Springs all the way to Cannonsburg, and it'll be an exciting amenity for us to have.
A park for people that are downtown to enjoy the natural.
That's right. We're talking about one of the major, we're talking about a pedestrian bridge right over Broad Street at Church, so that people can have that connectivity to downtown from the Town Creek. So the Town Creek daylighting will connect us to our greenway system, and so we're just hoping that whole project creates an excitement and a connectivity, and energizes downtown, which is what everybody wants to have an energetic, vibrant downtown.
One of the questions that the public would probably initially ask about that is, when you do start that project and they involved in the construction and removing the surface to get to that creek underneath, which is in corrugated pipe of some kind.
Right. It's it's in piping.
How much, and I'm sure you've had a discussion about this, how much will that disrupt traffic on Broad, or will it?
I don't think it will. I'm not intimate with the construction plans, but it's far enough off of the road. Now, we are talking about maybe making some roadway improvements to Broad, maybe an additional right turn lane from Church onto Broad. So there's going to be some widening of Church, especially at the intersection. There's going to be some laneage widening
and also
there.
Vine Street.
Right. Vine and Front Street we're going to take that bad intersection, signalize it, and make it a better, safer intersection. I didn't mention this, but opening up Town Creek, that is a major environmental benefit too. I mean, that opening that creek back up to its natural condition, I mean, we're going to see, it's going to create a habitat for wildlife that right now
water needs daylight.
It needs daylight. I mean, and we I think we'll see some water quality benefit and water quality enhancement by opening that creek up as well. So it's got a lot of benefits, and we're just in a new day. I don't know when that was originally closed up, but I'm sure it was
in the 1950s.
It was 50, 60 years ago, or 70 years ago. Yeah.
What about, have you had meetings about West Park?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
We
have. I know Nate Williams and Sam Huddleston worked very hard for that. Again, we're expecting to have that bid by the end of the year as well. That was one of our kind of high priorities, is to get. I know on the West Side Park has been something that has been
requested
demanded, and we've kind of, the city's been working, I know, on several different parcel or different tracts of land to try to make that happen. But yes, we do have that It's a significant investment that the city's looking at, and that's one of one of the items of the one-on-ones I've been having with council is the cost of that park and how we've tried to value engineer it and get it to a condition where we have the money to do it. So that we're excited about it. I think again, Nate's the subject matter expert on it, and he's ready to go. Everybody's anxious to get it started. So that is another element. And so as I talk to the council, we are expected to have. I'm wanting to have a retreat. We've got one scheduled for October 24th and 25th. That I'm keeping kind of a running agenda items. You know, the West Park, the road improvements, the economic development improvements. You know, some of the strategic plans that I'm interested in developing, how we want to approach public safety pay and our general fund pay. The one thing I've been very focused on, or want to focus on, is that we've addressed a lot of the public safety pay issues, but we've got to address our general fund services pay plan as well. So we're working on that and want to get buy-in from the council on how we can structure that better. And instead of having a situation where we seem to have fallen behind without knowing we've fallen behind, how do we stay ahead of that and take a more proactive position in how we pay our employees?
I'm glad you brought that up, because from a public standpoint, I think a lot of people recognize that public safety needed some increases even during COVID, and there were increases, fairly substantial for public employees. But somehow there was a need to do it again. So is it because all the other communities around us increased their salaries, and then, you know, it's like, to me, that's pure inflation, right?
Well, there's a lot of factors, I think, that have contributed to where we're at right now. But primarily, we're all competing somewhat for the same workforce. And public safety being, and we're such a fast-growing community, just the entire region, Central Tennessee region. We created somewhat of an arms race where if I can pay them another increment up, then the next city will trump that, and then I'll have to trump that. And so you kind of have created this one-upmanship of how much you can pay the public safety, and I understand it to a degree. Metro Nashville, we've come to my epiphany has been, you know, we've got one of the, you know, fastest growing, exciting metropolitan areas in the nation, 35 miles away, that they can afford to pay their public safety folks very well, and they don't mind necessarily putting public taxes as that revenue source. Maybe they're a little more liberal about their tax increments or increases, and we're not. We're in a very conservative community, and we want to be very frugal about how the tax money's spent. We want to be good stewards,
which is part of why people are attracted to the community. So you have to stay with that.
You have to stay. You know, we have a council. You know, the council priority. They want. They do not want tax increases that are not necessary. So, but to keep up with someone like a Metro Nashville, if you don't keep up with that pay component, then you start to lose firefighters, or you lose police, or you can't hire police.
They also have a pension, right?
Yes.
Still.
Yes,
so that's another competitive factor.
That's another compelling factor. So what we have to do is we just have to come up again with a protocol that looks at our peers, maybe Metro Nashville being one of those peers, and consistently come up with a repeatable process where we know where we are within the market, and we know after the raises are given by all of our peer communities where we are in relation to them, and have that factored into next year's budget. And then again, have a frank conversation if we can afford it. I mean, we've got to do it, and we can't lose our public safety employees. to surrounding communities.
Which is one of the major priorities that any city has to fulfill.
Absolutely. Public safety.
And if you're not, you're...
Well, public safety is really the government's primary role, right? I mean, you want to keep people safe. I mean, I know we can talk infrastructure, we can talk economic development, we can talk water resources, and a lot of other things that we do, but public safety is paramount.
Growth of the city. So the city's been growing tremendously, and one of the top growing cities in the country. Infrastructure obviously is one of those, new
Right.
roads and everything, but also space. You have to have space for employees, and then you have to communicate that. I mean, recently, the city acquired two buildings,
Right.
rather than building new, but water resources one, and then parks and fire for another because of the development Keystone, which we talked about on Broad Street. You have spacing needs now that are still being dealt with, right?
Right.
Because the number of employees are
Yeah.
growing.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because we started. This was back last August of last year. We started meeting. We actually started meeting in July of last year as our executive director team. We'd conduct monthly meetings to try to get on the same page. Let one person know, if I want to implement this program, does it adversely affect anyone else in the room? And just get a better communication cadence. I call it communication cadence between divisions. And one of those things that I recall way back, when I say way back when, 2015, 2014, when Rob Lyons, the previous city manager before Craig, tried to get a space needs assessment passed at the council, and it was a high dollar, it was a very significant amount of money. And the council did not accept the proposal that was put in front of them because of the cost. And I think I heard someone say, staff ought to be able to do this. So fast forward, say 8-9 years later, that's something I thought as an executive team we could accomplish. I didn't think we could necessarily do as well a space needs assessment, say as a space planning expert or an architectural firm that specializes in that. But I said, hey, we can go get some of the data. The data gathering component has to be a significant amount of money to go just get what facilities do you have? How is that space broken out in your existing facilities? Let's go do, quote, the legwork and compile it in a way that we can go forward and engage an architectural firm or some other type of firm to help us take that raw data and put it into a space needs assessment document. And as we got into it, month after month, it turned into a head count. Now we're saying, hey, we've got head count projection. We need a head count projection. If we're looking at a 10-year horizon, how many new employees are we going to have? And then all of a sudden, you see the number of employees to keep up with growth. If our employee head count matches the population projection, which is about somewhere between 30 and 35% over 10 years, we're going to add close to 350 employees.
And people normally don't look at that.
They don't look at that. And so when I said, I'm like, good grief, we've got 35. So divide that by 10, you're looking at 35 new employees per year. And then, of course, it gets back to pay. And then we're talking about raises for our existing
Right.
employees and then new employees. And this thing just kind of cascaded and mushroomed, if you will, into a much more comprehensive strategic document that I wasn't expecting it to turn into.
But that's necessary.
It's necessary, and that is going to be one of the items at our council retreat that we review, and we talk about the space needs and those capital costs to keep up with space. Why do we need space? Well, we've got these head count, we've got new employees that have to come online because our population is growing so much. That affects budgets, right? Because we're going to have to pay these folks. So once you see it in a more comprehensive cause and effect, and how these are so intertwined, I think it'll be a very good thing for the council to see, because it's been very eye-opening to me.
And for the public to see.
And for the public to see, for sure.
The average listener might say, well, why do we need more employees? But if you have more parks and you have more roads
that's right.
and more services, because you have more people, you're
Right.
going to need more people.
Absolutely. More police, more firefighters. Your population grows. to maintain the same level of service, you got to increase your employee count. Now, we could not increase employees and have a diminished level of service, but I don't think people would be satisfied with that. I don't think people want to see.
Right.
One of the reasons people come to Murfreesboro is because we have such a high quality of service. So, again, it gets you into more of a strategic discussion about how do we want to approach this for the long term, and then you can again start backing that up into protocols and policies and procedures on how do you incrementally get there instead of all of a sudden one day, oh gosh, we're behind, and you have this big knee-jerk reaction. You haven't been proactive, so now you have to be reactive to it, and everybody gets upset. One thing I've learned as a leader and one thing as a manager, there will always be needs to react to unforeseens and emergencies. But if there's something that can be predicted and is a repeatable and you know it's coming, to have to constantly react to that in an emergency, in a form of an urgency that it just makes people upset. It's like we should have got ahead of this. Right. Why do we keep having this same occurrence happening, and it surprises? Why are we surprised that this continues to happen to us? So that philosophy, I want to take. We did a lot of strategic planning at Water. I feel like I'm fairly gifted at that, and I think when people see the value of it, a lot of us just think strategic plan, yeah, whatever. You don't. But when you start seeing real components to it, and how you can start measuring progress towards a target that you put out there in a 5 or 10 year horizon, people get a little excited about it and say, hey, now we can be proactive. Now we can measure ourselves, how we're doing.
And I've seen you do that with the water department, having these measures and well, for example, the solid waste fee and things. Yep. Like, planning ahead. Every manager, city manager, has his own style or approach. What would you consider to be yours?
Well, again, I want people. There's another Maxwell leadership law.
John Maxwell.
John Maxwell, yeah. So look that up. Look up John Maxwell. It says you can't ask for a hand until you touch a heart, right? So the first thing, again, that I'm doing here is to try to make sure that I let people know we care about them. People are not going to. A lot of people just will not respond to a new manager, a new leader, if they don't think that they care mm-hmm. about what's going on with them. So I want people to know I care. I want to demonstrate that through time spent with them and the engagement, the level of engagement and the active listening that I provide. And then I want us to develop that authentic relationship that, hey, I trust, there's some trust here. And when there's trust, then that's the secret sauce, is if people trust each other, then you can explore opportunities maybe that you wouldn't have explored before. New collaborations. You can take maybe some more calculated risks. You can try new things. And then ultimately what we're trying to evolve into, right, the vision, and I've said this in my interviews, that learning organization. And a learning organization, again, it's just proactive, it's nimble, it's reinventing itself constantly. We know that with technology, the way it's advancing, and with just the ways of our world, we've said it, change is the only constant. How do you take control of change? Well, you reinvent yourself constantly. And I know, and that's a little cliche, I understand that, but when you put 5-year, 10-year strategic plans out there, sometimes the targets move, and you have to be able to peer around that wall, or peer over that wall, or peer around that corner, and say, hey, our target's shifted. We need to readjust our target for our long-term needs. And now you have a vessel or a document, right, that you can make those adjustments proactively.
Yeah. Do you see that there's an expense to that? A learning organization like training, I know we have Cornerstone, which is a training format, but I mean, how much money is involved in?
Again, culture. There's an old maxim, and I can't remember who said it, but culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if we don't have the right culture, we can come up with as many strategic plans as we want, and it's going to just fall flat. So the culture, again, has to get to that point of we trust each other, we expect great things from each other, we have each other's back.
It sounds like that's where communication comes
That's
in.
the communication part, and if you ask me what my 6-month goal is, and again, this kind of hopefully aligns with my interview comments or responses, is we want to have effective meetings. We want to take good notes. Somebody asked me the other day, why are so many people coming to these meetings? Well, because if you don't come to the meeting, you don't know what happened. If you get a good scribe, and somebody starts to trust that there's a good scribe at every meeting, and that those notes or those minutes, if you will be transmitted to the group.
So there could be follow-up.
So there could be follow-up, and then not so many people have to be there because they can get the high points or understand what happened through that written documentation. I think it will lessen the amount of people that are required at meetings. I think it will shorten meetings. One of the main reasons people don't like meetings is because there are too many people, which is inefficient. They go too long, which is inefficient. And so why do you want to go to those meetings? I don't want to go to an inefficient, long, boring,
And I hear that complaint, but there's also synergy that comes out of meetings.
There is. And so there is a balance. There's that communication cadence. And so I don't want to sound like I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth. I think if you have a construction project, an economic development, some type of progress project, a good agenda is necessary. What are the action items to advance that project forward or that initiative forward? And how do we have good follow-up? Now, we'll call these, that's one style of meeting. It's a very programmatic, we're trying to complete a task and get something done. It may be a year, 2-year, 3-year project, don't know. You've got another, we'll call it the synergy meetings. And that's these division meetings we try to have every month where there's really no set agenda. It really is more of a, how can I help? Are you stuck? Do I need to interject myself into a situation to help you get unstuck? Is there something that I need to communicate to the council that they need to be aware of, that may be something festering or something coming to a head that they need to know about before they hear about it on WGNS or read about it in the D&J? So those type meetings, I try to have those recurring meetings. I've set those up between our major divisions. Now the trick is, how do I let, say, the development services monthly meeting know what the recreation services meeting looks like? So now we need to, so we don't want to create those, I've got 7 silos that I'm working in. We're going to have to figure out how to interconnect. And again, that's where I'm trying to take a lot of notes, publish those notes, and let the different divisions see what was talked about maybe in an area that they don't necessarily they don't deal with on an ongoing basis. And we've talked about having quarterly just network. We don't call it a meeting. We just have quarterly networking sessions where all the divisions come together, all the directors, assistant directors, and we come in and we just connect.
Which seems to get to what your approach, and what may be a little bit different is you're going to be a lot more transparent in your approach than maybe people have seen or expected in the past.
Well, there are consequences of being too transparent, and I understand that. There's consequences of being too confidential and too close to holding information too close to the vest. I think the message I received from the council is we need to go more into the spectrum of more transparent, and if there's consequences with that, then I'll have to deal with it. If I let too much information out about certain things that maybe shouldn't have been released, and maybe I'm too quick to put them out into the public forum, I'll just have to I'll have to handle that. Again, there may be some type of middle ground, but I think that's one of the core missions of public service. Is
In the public sector, it's very important.
It's transparency is the I mean, it is a core value that your public expects.
Yeah, it's how democracy works.
It's how democracy
civic
works.
Organizations.
Right. There doesn't need to be any, unilateral decision making that's in a back room. That creates that good old boy type depiction, or that good old boy type idea by the public that we just don't want that to manifest.
And that's where the cultural change, I mean, there may be some people that haven't become used to that over several years, and they're going to have to change.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right.
They're going to,
it's going to be a different flavor, and some people may not like that flavor. And, that's where, again, I hope to convince them, and I hope to coach them and mentor and lead them in that new culture. And I expect I think the majority's excited about it from the one-on-ones I've had with staff. There may be some that aren't excited about it. That's okay. I mean, I don't, if I can get 85% of the folks on board, there may be 10 or 15 that's not. And, but over time, they'll have to adapt to it.
as we wrap it up, I know we'll continue to have this conversation here on The Insider in the future, but is there anything in particular that you wanted to address or bring up, either an issue or an approach that you're taking that we haven't talked about?
No, I mean, again, if being consistent and engaged is all I'm trying to really accomplish. I don't want to. There's an art to change management and change leadership, and that's part of that is to not try to initiate too much change too quickly. So a lot of the things that we're talking about, I'm not expecting that to happen overnight. That is a long-term cultural shift that it's going to take years, honestly, to get us there. I don't want the employees or the public or the council or anyone, any of our stakeholders, honestly, the development community, all those to expect that I'm coming in here to make drastic changes. I'm going to be more open and transparent and communicate and try to have more meetings and be more engaged. That's my only goal, and listen. And over time, we will move into maybe that cultural shift. There's a lot of things on our learning management system that I'm not trying to push too hard because I want everybody to be comfortable. Like, there's a new dance tune out here, and we're having to do a new dance. Let's just figure out if we like, let's kind of ease into it, if you will.
Well, again, congratulations, and thanks for being a guest on The Insider.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Mike.
Darren Gore has been our guest, the new city manager for the City of Murfreesboro on The Insider. We've been highlighting issues involved in the City of Murfreesboro. We're originating this podcast from City Hall. Thanks for joining us on The Insider via our multiple platforms. You can also watch The Insider on YouTube. Our producer is Michael Nevels. For more information on the City of Murfreesboro, it's murfreesborotn.gov. Thanks for joining us.